Ethan Cole was 29 years old when he finally realized that debt was not what ruined people. Shame did. Every morning he woke up at 6:15 in a tiny apartment outside Chicago, stared at the water stain spreading across the ceiling, and listened to the same sound, notifications from his phone. Payment due, minimum payment processed, available balance updated, credit limit reached. The sound had become part of his life like breathing. He used to think credit cards were evil, predatory, designed to trap ordinary people. That was what his father always said. Cash is honest, his father used to tell him while fixing broken air conditioners in the middle of brutal summer afternoons. Credit is a leash. Back then, Ethan believed him. But by 29, Ethan owned 4 credit cards, 2 personal loans, a car payment he could barely afford, and a bank account that looked like it had survived a natural disaster. And strangely enough, none of that was actually the real problem. The real problem was that Ethan spent money every time he felt small. He just didn't know it yet. The first card came during college. A smiling woman stood behind a booth near campus holding free pizza coupons and t-shirts. "Build your future," she said. He signed up in under 3 minutes. At first it felt powerful. Swipe. Instant gratification, new sneakers, concert tickets, late-night burgers for friends, a leather jacket he absolutely did not need. He told himself he would pay it off later. Everyone said that. Later never came. Years passed faster than he expected. College ended. Life started. Reality hit like cold rain. Ethan got a sales job at a software company downtown. The office looked impressive from the outside. Glass walls, expensive coffee machines, motivational quotes printed everywhere. Inside, everyone was exhausted. His manager, Trevor, wore perfect suits and spoke like life was a competition nobody else understood. Perception matters, Trevor always said. People buy confidence. Confidence, Ethan learned, was expensive. Soon he upgraded everything. Better clothes, better watch, nicer restaurants, weekend trips, luxury gym membership. He started posting carefully edited photos online. Rooftop bars, airport selfies, steak dinners, smiling faces. The strange thing was that the more successful he looked, the emptier he felt. But every time anxiety crept in, he swiped again, because buying something gave him relief, temporary relief. Like taking painkillers for a broken bone. One Friday night, Ethan sat in a dimly lit restaurant with coworkers celebrating a promotion he didn't get. Trevor raised a glass. "To the grinders," he said. Everyone cheered. Ethan smiled even though his stomach felt hollow. When the bill arrived, his friend Marcus leaned closer. "You good?" Marcus asked quietly. "Yeah," Ethan lied. The truth was his checking account had less than $40 in it, but Ethan still grabbed the bill first. "I got this." The table exploded with approval. Legend. Big spender. Respect. His credit card trembled slightly in his hand as he tapped it against the machine. Approved. For a moment he felt important again. That night he drove home through rain-soaked streets feeling like he was drowning invisibly. Nobody knew, not his coworkers, not his mother. Not even his girlfriend, Claire, especially not Claire. Claire believed Ethan was ambitious, driven, going places. She loved bookstores, quiet coffee shops, and old movies that made Ethan sleepy. She worked as a middle school art teacher and somehow always seemed calm even when life became chaotic. One Sunday afternoon, she found Ethan staring silently at his banking app. "You okay?" she asked. "Just work stress." She sat beside him on the couch. "You know," she said softly, "you don't always have to prove something." Ethan laughed nervously. "Easy for you to say." "What does that mean?" "You're naturally stable." Claire looked confused. "Stable? You don't care what people think." "That's not true." "Yes, it is." She shook her head. "No, Ethan, I just stopped letting strangers decide my worth." The sentence hit him harder than he expected. But instead of thinking about it, he changed the subject. That was Ethan's specialty. Avoidance. Months later, everything collapsed on a Tuesday, not dramatically, not with screaming or flashing lights, just one email. Subject, final notice. He opened it during lunch break. His chest tightened immediately. One of his cards had been closed. Another payment bounced. His credit score had dropped nearly 80 points in 2 months. He suddenly couldn't breathe properly. The office noise blurred into static. Trevor's voice echoed somewhere nearby, talking about quarterly targets. Ethan stood up, walked into the bathroom, locked himself inside a stall, and stared blankly at the floor. He did the math 3 times, then a 4th. No matter how he calculated it, he was losing. He owed over $38,000. $38,000. The number felt unreal. His hands shook. For the first time in years, he admitted something to himself. He wasn't financially struggling because life was unfair. He was financially struggling because he was emotionally addicted to appearing successful. That realization terrified him. Most people think debt begins with math. It doesn't. It begins with identity. A week later, Claire found him sitting alone in darkness. "You didn't turn on any lights?" Ethan rubbed his face. "I think I messed up." She sat beside him carefully. "How bad?" He finally told her everything, every card, every loan, every lie. Every hidden statement. He expected anger. Instead, Claire looked sad, not disappointed, just sad. "You thought you had to carry this alone? I didn't want you seeing me differently." She was quiet for several seconds. Then she asked the question that changed his life. "When did you decide money was proof that you mattered?" Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out, because he genuinely didn't know. Maybe it started when his father constantly worried about bills. Maybe when richer kids mocked his old clothes in high school. Maybe when social media convinced everyone that luxury meant happiness. Maybe all of it. Claire squeezed his hand. "You don't need more money first," she whispered. "You need a different relationship with yourself." At the time, Ethan thought that sounded ridiculous. But later, alone in bed, he realized something uncomfortable. Every purchase he regretted happened when he felt insecure. Every single one. The expensive watch after being ignored at work. Designer shoes after seeing successful influencers online. Fancy dinners after feeling inadequate around coworkers. Debt was not his financial problem. Debt was the symptom. His strategy for handling insecurity was the real disaster. That realization didn't magically fix anything. Life actually became harder because awareness destroys excuses. Ethan stopped using his credit cards first. That alone felt like withdrawal. No more random spending. No more emotional shopping. No more pretending. He deleted shopping apps from his phone. Unfollowed influencers who made him feel poor. Canceled subscriptions he barely used. Sold his expensive watch. Sold old electronics. Even sold the leather jacket he once loved. Each decision hurt his ego, but slowly something strange happened. He started breathing easier. Not because his debt disappeared, because his double life was disappearing. Marcus noticed the change first. "You're different lately," he said during lunch. "How? You stopped trying so hard?" Ethan laughed. "That obvious? Painfully obvious." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "You know something funny? Most people at this office are broke." "What?" "I'm serious," Marcus said. "Half these guys are financing lifestyles they can't afford." Ethan stared at him. All those luxury vacations, debt. The cars, debt. The watches, definitely debt. Marcus smirked. "America runs on insecurity, brother." That sentence stayed in Ethan's head for weeks. America runs on insecurity. Advertisements didn't sell products. They sold emotional escape. Buy this car and become respected. Buy these shoes and become attractive. Buy this watch and become important. Ethan had spent years purchasing identities instead of building one. For the first time in his adult life, he started learning about money honestly. Not get-rich-quick nonsense. Real financial literacy, budgeting, emergency funds, interest rates, behavior psychology, delayed gratification. He discovered that wealthy people often used credit cards strategically while broke people used them emotionally. That changed everything. The card itself wasn't evil. The strategy behind it mattered. A hammer can build a house or destroy one. Same tool, different behavior. Months passed, then a year. The transformation was slow enough that nobody online would have cared. No viral success story. No millionaire breakthrough. No sports car reward, just discipline. Quiet, repetitive discipline. Ethan cooked at home more, worked extra freelance hours, paid off his smallest card first. Then another. Then another. Every balance reaching zero felt surreal, like recovering tiny pieces of freedom. One winter evening, Claire found him smiling at his laptop. "What happened?" He turned the screen toward her. One account balance showed exactly $0 owed. Claire grinned instantly. "There it is." "It's stupid," Ethan said quietly. "But this feels bigger than money. Because it is." She understood before he did. Paying off debt wasn't just financial recovery, it was identity recovery. For years, Ethan believed confidence came from displaying success. Now he realized real confidence came from not needing constant validation. The difference changed his entire life. 2 years later, Ethan sat inside a small coffee shop near the river reviewing his finances. No panic, no dread, No hidden disasters, just numbers, simple numbers. He still used a credit card. Only one, and he paid it in full every month, not because he feared debt anymore, because he finally understood himself. Across the cafe, a young guy in an expensive suit argued loudly on his phone. "No, just put it on the card," the guy snapped. "I'll figure it out later." Ethan almost laughed because he remembered that version of himself perfectly, the desperate performance, the invisible pressure, the exhausting need to look successful before becoming stable. Claire arrived carrying 2 coffees. "You look thoughtful," she said. "I was just thinking how weird life is." "That's a dangerous sentence." Ethan smiled. "I spent years blaming credit cards, and now I think most people don't actually have money problems first." Claire raised an eyebrow. "What do they have?" He stared out the window at traffic sliding through the city. "Self-worth problems?" She nodded slowly like she had known all along. By 34, Ethan had completely paid off every dollar of consumer debt. The final payment happened quietly on a rainy Thursday night. No celebration, no dramatic music. He simply clicked submit, then sat motionless. 5 years earlier, he believed financial freedom meant having unlimited money. Now he understood it differently. Financial freedom meant your decisions were no longer controlled by fear, insecurity, or appearances. That night, Ethan called his father. "You busy?" Ethan asked. "Nah, what's up?" There was a pause. Then Ethan smiled softly. "I paid everything off." Silence. His father cleared his throat. "All of it, all of it." Another silence, this one heavier, proud. "You did good, son." Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at rain hitting the windows. For the first time in years, he felt light. Not rich, not famous, not impressive, just free. Weeks later, Trevor invited Ethan to lunch. Trevor looked older now, tired around the eyes. "I heard you're leaving the company," Trevor said. "Yeah, what happened? You were on track for management." Ethan stirred his coffee slowly. "I realized I was building a life I didn't even want." Trevor laughed awkwardly. "That's adulthood." "No," Ethan replied calmly. "That's fear pretending to be ambition." Trevor frowned slightly. "You sound different." "I am different." Trevor looked out the window. "You know," he admitted quietly, "sometimes I think I'm one bad month away from disaster." Ethan studied him carefully. Perfect suit, luxury watch, expensive haircut, same old performance. For the first time, Ethan didn't envy it, not even a little. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan asked. "Sure. Credit cards aren't the problem." Trevor smirked. "Sounds like something a financial guru would say." Ethan shook his head. "No, the real problem is using money to solve emotional pain." Trevor's expression slowly changed. Because deep down he understood. Most adults did. They just rarely admitted it aloud. Years later, Ethan began speaking at small financial workshops across local community centers and colleges. Nothing glamorous. Sometimes only 12 people showed up, sometimes 30. But he told the truth every single time. "You can't budget your way out of insecurity," he would say. "You have to heal the mindset creating the spending." People listened differently when someone spoke from experience instead of superiority. One evening after a workshop, a college student approached him nervously. "I think I'm becoming addicted to spending," the student admitted. Ethan nodded gently. "Why do you spend?" The student shrugged. "I don't know, it makes me feel better for a little while." Ethan smiled sadly. "Exactly." The student looked embarrassed. "So what do I do?" Ethan thought carefully before answering. "Start asking what emotion you're trying to buy relief from." The student stood quietly, then nodded. That question alone could change someone's life, because most people never investigate their spending emotionally. They only judge the outcome financially, but behavior always has roots. Always. Late one autumn night, Ethan walked home through cold air and glowing city lights. Claire walked beside him, holding his hand inside her coat pocket. "You ever miss the old days?" she asked teasingly. "The debt, the fake rich era." Ethan laughed loudly. "Absolutely not. Not even the rooftop bars. Especially not the rooftop bars." She smiled. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "You actually look more successful now." Ethan frowned. "I wear cheaper clothes." "Yeah," Claire said, "but now you look peaceful, peaceful." Nobody online bragged about peace enough. But peace was the real flex, not luxury cars, not designer brands, not pretending. Peace. The ability to sleep without fear, to open your banking app without panic, to stop performing for strangers, to know your worth exists beyond what you can purchase. That was the victory. As they crossed the street together, Ethan looked up at the glowing skyline around them. Years ago, those buildings made him feel small. Now they were just buildings, because he finally understood something nobody taught him growing up. Money amplifies who you already are. If you are insecure, money can make you recklessly performative. If you are disciplined, money becomes a tool. If you hate yourself, spending becomes emotional anesthesia. And if you finally respect yourself, you stop needing strangers to validate your lifestyle. Credit cards were never the villain in Ethan's story. His strategy was, and once he changed the strategy, everything else slowly changed too.